Hello, everyone. My name is Igor Tomic, and today I would like you to welcome on our episode of Fintech Garden, and we're going to discuss ethical ML in banking and finance.
Wow, a great topic. Hello to everyone. My name is Dumitru. I'm also co-host of Igor here, and today for this podcast, as usually, we are today we'll touch a very specific topic. Everything started from two stories, real stories. One mine and one of your friend. Me and my wife, both of the same profile, with the same background, with the same tax resident status, with everything the same. My wife was receiving in internet banking and in our banks was receiving like this a credit limit, and me not. And your friends something like the same, but vice versa.
It's vice versa, and that's the case in the United States, and it was due to the credit line in Apple Pay or something in the United States, and was widely discussed several years ago. And the experiment was from the technical guy, and he has a wife who is working in this similar field. They both from this similar university, as understandable, same household, etc., etc. And when she applied for the credit, she was denied, and he applied with the same parameters and he got the credit. And that was a large discussion about biases, especially in machine learning and AI, by making decisions. So that's today's topic, and let's start
Let's
maybe
start.
with your case.
Yeah, so this is why we touched this topic. I made a deep research in my situation. I was like, what's happening? And I understood that it's because of my gender. So in my country, well, be specific. It was not my country. I was living in that moment in another country, but with full residence permit, full time residence permit, and my wife the same. In that country, women were much more appreciated by the scoring than than the men. I know that in in a lot of countries exist rules by gender, but the most interesting thing was I was earning much more money than my wife at that moment, and my wife had a great credit limit, me not. So ML has no sometimes has no ethical part at all. Mostly today, the topic of gender of equality is a trendy topic. But for example, in the states, it's vice versa. If you are a woman, you're a woman, you're being considered as
Segmentation will be
yes,
different. So you
yeah.
might be segmented the way that you're not in specific segments. So you might not get a specific product for yourself.
And everything comes from the cultural background. I mean, of course, machine learning, AI, ML, they are taught by humans. So we insert the patterns of our cultural patterns in post-Soviet Union or post-socialist countries in Europe, in Eastern Europe, exist a belief, and sometimes it's even true, that women are more um, responsible, and women if they take a credit, they are much more responsible to return it back. And seems like when I digged into my problem, seems like it's true. And this is why poor statistically men are a little bit disconsidered in scoring credit scoring. But unfortunately, uh, ML or AI, because they were taught by humans, they do not develop scoring system for different portraits of a man, of a male person. And it's this is where the ethic part starts, mostly because we are now in a period where we are discussing about uh, equal opportunities, equal accesses to finance. Why then we have a issue with genders in credit scoring? Maybe we have to rethink it, uh, and maybe ethics should be somehow inserted in ML. And if it's possible, how an ethics can be inserted, of course, via some rule. But it means that maybe those who are writing the code, writing the protocols for machine learning, maybe they have to be taught also how to be equal, to look equal. So yeah, it's a very specific topic. Do you know other cases?
Yeah, actually, I just recalled in my head a quite interesting case in United States with the Chase,
Mm.
and the Chase has been fined for this case. So in California, Chase deliberately banned Armenian last names. That's quite wide known case.
Kardashians also?
Something something Yan. So the trick was that they, and it was not an official run books from the compliance, because they segmented the cases for the frauds or whatever, and then find out that this type of the last name much more in risk by the segment. They deliberately banned those people for opening accounts in California, if I'm not mistaken. I might be mistaken with the states, but it was with this specific state, and it's definitely Chase Bank. And that's, once again, it's not even about the technology. I think how the pressure from the regulator to be effective, because
Yes.
and the first thing, when we working with the customers in financial industry, we have a pressure from the regulator to be sustainable, to be robust as a business. It means that we have a specific degree of the frauds and legal activities that we should protect it with. And on one hand, the regulator is pushing us, but on the other hand, they limiting us, or they limiting the tooling and approaching for those cases. So with the Chase, it was quite an interesting case. So they resolved both cases. So in one way, they complied with the regulator by acting upon the frauds, but another way, they misused the tool by banning specific last names rather than developing more sophisticated approach. And it shows me, or it's a good highlight, that it doesn't start with the technology. It starts with the thinking and business understanding. Someone there develop the playbook, the rule book, which is completely omitting the technology by not just offering or allowing opening accounts for those people.
The topic of ethics in ML or AI, but let's use more ML.
Yeah, ML, definitely not AI. We're
Yeah,
not in presentation. We're in
yes, and
practical.
practical. So the ethics in ML, it's the old topic basically. Well, French Revolution, Greek, ancient Greek authors, philosophers, German philosophers, everyone are speaking for the last 3,000 years about the what is first and what's the most predominant, logic or ethics. Machine learning is logic. Of course, it's a logic built on the patterns. Patterns are written by humans, and humans are not totally right all the times. Plus, humans have emotions. They hate Armenians and they banned all the Armenians in Chase, for example. Yes. The topic of ML and ethics is the golden topic of logics and ethics. What's the predominant? I honestly think that the logics has to be first all the time, but we call it pragmatic approach. Uh, Logics first, empathy second, and ethics third. When we are doing hard business decisions, we understand that firing a person ethically maybe it's not correct because he is in bad financial situation. I don't know. Emotionally, it's not the easiest thing to fire a person, but logically, it's the best of the company. It's best for you as a manager. It's best for your business wherever. So I think honestly think that ethics in machine learning has to be present, but it has to be only a small part, total amount of patterns. I honestly think that we need to separate in machine learning the patterns of genders, for example, in credit scoring or buy now pay later. We need to separate or to diversificate the logic of ages and to make profiling as much as possible because exist different types of women, men, young, old, middle ages 30, 35, middle ages 35, 40, rural, non-rural, semi-rural, semi-urban areas, megapolis areas. So we have a lot of things. And here comes the tricky thing. In one of our previous recordings, in our previous podcast, we discussed about the MVP stages and we discussed about the importance to do it fast. The guy who created Waze even have a I think have a book.
You recommended
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. Forgot the name. Shame on me.
Ah, whatever.
Yeah.
But you can take a look on the previous
Yes.
episode
Yes.
and learn the name without us.
Shame on me. But he was like, act quickly, make mistakes quickly.
Reversible, reversible, I
Yes.
think.
Yes. And I think, returning back to the example with Armenians, I think someone or was lazy or was pushed to take decision quickly. And when you take decision quickly, you don't have time to make profiling. It's okay. Somehow we'll solve the problem in the future. When the new problem appear, we'll solve it somehow.
Tech debt. I like as an engineer this approach.
Yeah, product depth in this case. What, in your opinion, has to prevalate in machine learning, logic or ethics? I'm sure you'll say logic, but
No, I will not say that. I think, and that's kind of the book that I'm going to suggest in the
mm,
end of the episode, because I think it's important two things in the data set that we're preparing for ML: what data we have, but what data we don't. And that's what you mentioned with the gender. Like, what is going to happen if we're going to train our models with omitting the gender in the profile? Then the machine learning will cannot tell the difference and will not take into the consideration the gender of the person which is profiled. So I think it's not about ML itself, because if you will give the instruction to engineer to implement the algorithm for scoring someone by omitting the gender, you will achieve the same results. Or you will say, okay, we have a scoring mechanism, and the bigger score, the more chance that you will get the credit for us. Please add 100 to all women. So it's a biased approach, and it doesn't matter which way you're implementing. Is it algorithm in the code? Is it no code platform? Is it configuration in the back office? Or essentially the ML, which is trained on data? What is important? How cautiously we are selecting, fragmenting, and preparing the data for machine learning. Because machine learning can be biased if we take in biased data sets, and can be unbiased if we take in unbiased data sets. And that really gives a heavy pressure for the people who are data engineers or training those models. And another point that I would like to highlight: it's really hard to control if you're buying those models rather than training yourself on your data. Because there are a lot of software which right now, or companies and products which are allowing you to buy the machine learning models for I don't know, almost everything. And if you're buying the third party model, how you can make ensure that it's unbiased? Not even about the ethics, even about the logic. Maybe there is a, I don't know, backdoor which is saying if that's a CEO of this company this age, then grant as much credit as you want.
remember the movie I'm Robot with
Yeah,
Will Smith?
yeah,
The AI took a decision which was logic, but not ethical.
yeah.
And here comes the theory of relativeness of Einstein.
Inside, yeah.
Einstein, yes. It was not ethical from the human perspective, not from the planet perspective. And here comes the tricky thing. What I want to put the accent on. Right now, can a machine by itself to develop ethical patterns?
Yeah. There is no such thing. And since you mentioned the movie, I have another really good example. Like, maybe not to give an information, but think about that. If you remember, a decade ago, there was a series which were called Westworld. And it's based on the movie from late 70s. It was one
Mhm.
of the first sci-fi movies. And the setting is that you're kind of in the Westworld with the cowboys and everything, but those are not real humans, but machines. And you're kind of in Disneyland, where you can act as a psycho, you can kill people, you can do a lot of nasty things. And it's kind of the designed world with the robots. And the setting is that those robots are going out of the control. And actually, the trick is that there is a team which is supporting those robots, and they kind of debugging them as AI by talking with them. That's how we do right now. So I would say, and that might be the spoiler alert. Sorry, guys, but the first season, all the issues because they are not using proper debugging and doing acceptance testing, but just several cases. So that comes back to the issue with the MLs and logic. Yes, it's really true. But once again, technology is facilitating the logic, whatever it's built into the business. Is it ethical? Is it not ethical? Is it empathy or not empathy? The technology is carving in stone what we agreed on, how our business will run. And It has nothing to do with the ML itself. So you can train the ML to call elephants cats because you will prepare the data set like that. Because ML has no understanding, no meaning what elephants and cats are. So if you will mark the data set with the elephants and will say, okay, if this nice cat is having a really nice trunk, that's definitely a cat. So it's not about ethics, I would say.
Before starting, before having a good, a comprehensive discussion with a child, first you need to taught him. You have to taught what means me and others. You have to taught him what means mama, father, and mother. You have to taught him means a chair, and most important thing, you need to taught him what means a question and answer. This is one of the basic things of linguistics. A lot of linguistics, when they start the study of a language, they start from this basis. The same thing with ML. Before making ML take by himself, her itself, you see, I personalized already. So before ML will take it by itself, an ethical decision, you need to taught what means ethical. You need to taught what means a human, what means a robot, what means everything else. I honestly believe that in one day we will achieve a level of ML where they will be much more ethical than we are. I don't know. It'll be like in the movie I Robot when they will decide it'll decide to kill us all, but I sure we will come to this place. And very important, which kind of ethical they will use, like ancient Greek ethical philosophers, or Descartes, or Kant, or Marx and Engels, wherever, or Mao. My God, yeah, depends on. But I think we will achieve this moment, and I think we have to have discussions with AI about the ethics.
That's a good point, but as a technology, we're not there yet. So, just to simplify and to make sure that everyone is on the same page, right now, ML and even with the chat GPT, it's working with the tokens. So, you can derive the logic from the word like mama, and it's a token. You can have a token for mama and you can reference other different ways mother, mama, it all the same token. And the trick and maybe the disadvantage at current stage is that there is no thinking process. What we have with the ML, with the large scale, with the narrow language models or visual models, or a lot of different models, they are not algorithmic. So with algorithm, you have the parameter A, parameter B, and you have defined the way how to work with them. Plus, minus, whatever. That's defined the algorithmic way. The difference with the current machine learning that you are kind of basically, if to simplify, you're providing for the statistic methods two data sets, cats and no cats. So that's the trick that I'm talking about. You can tell to ML that I'm feeding you the data set with a million images of cats, which are actually elephants. And then you're given a million of images where you should not have a defined topic, but you're saying that's a million of images with not cats. And actually, we cannot say in which way exactly the machine learning will understand the statistics and how it will understand that ear and trunk is actually the cat. But we're just fitting a huge Excel file with a lot of ifs. If you can see the pixel surrounded by this pixel with this color, with this shade, with this position, it might be the cat or the elephant, whatever we feed in a name in it, but there is no thinking process. And I really believe that we kind of in the state as with rocket and space technology. In the late 50s and early 60s, we assumed that we will be flying to the moon really soon. Like the space technology is so close. We had Sputnik launched into orbit. We had people launched into the space, and where we are. Like there is a website which is showing how much people currently in the space. Do you know the average number of the people who is out there, not on the Earth, in the space?
Around 6 or 7, who is the current
Yeah,
mission on
yeah. It's
ISS?
usually
ISS?
it's not more than dozens people. That's kind of the same, which I think is happening with machine learning. we, by the technology and by the performance of the computers, we reached the level where we can feed the huge amount of the data to the computer, and it can distinguish certain thing one from another, but it doesn't have the thinking process. And that's kind of the trick. When we're talking about the ethics, there is no talk, there is no educational process, there is no thinking project process. So then it's incomparable. If the machine learning, what machine learning can do, it can learn the style of writing the text as Greek people or Greek tokens, but it just copying statistical way rather than the thinking. Maybe it's like I in the when I started to use internet, I heard a really nice joke that if you will take million monkeys and you will take million of typewriters, at some stage they will copy, I don't know, Shakespeare poems. But do they understand how to write poems and that actually they can produce Shakespeare poems? No, that's kind of what is happening with ML right now. I'm not diminishing or underestimating what we have right now, but it literally million of monkeys with the million typewriters writing something unless it seems like Shakespeare poems. And we are somehow perceiving it as a thinking process, which is it isn't.
And this returns us back to what we from where we started the discussion. But the ethical part of machine learning, so ethical feature component is not is very linked to us, to humans, because if we as a human will insert it via protocols, via logic, then the machine learning will have ethics. Of course, it's important to have a good part of ethics in machine learning. It will help us to, specifically in banking, to avoid such big scandals like Chase had. It of course will help the banks that refuse to give me a good credit score to earn much more money from people like me who has the financial capacities but cannot use a credit card because they are not in scoring. I think I got it why they didn't give me a credit score.
Okay, so maybe to sum up while you're thinking, the short answer for ethics in machine learning and data analytics in banks and financial industries will be embedding the ethics into the business processes.
Agree.
I- If
Agree.
we are behaving as a stakeholders, if we are developing the requirements, if we are analyzing and constantly fixing unethical cases, because we're human. We might miss something. We might build in a misexpected way. But if we in constant life cycle, when we improving our ethics as a business process, essentially we will prepare the data sets for ML, which will be properly generating the models, and those models will become ethical.
Absolutely, totally agree. And let's now make a recommendation of a book. If we discussed about the ethics today, I would honestly recommend George Orwell 1984 for several reasons. First, it's because we're now living, I think, in the 1984 now in our current politics is like a playbook. But second is about the changing of the meanings of ethics. 1984 shows specifically how ethics, the subject of ethics, can be changed. And it goes nuts. So read this book and you'll find a lot of patterns.
It's powerful one. And my book also is overlapping with the topic. It's Dark Data by David Hand.
Mm.
And it's pretty powerful thought story and thought approach because sometimes we tend to think that we're making unbiased decision and we have all the data on the table. But sometimes our decisions are affected by not having specific data. That's not just about this book. It's like about the black swan from the Taleb, like people assumed, and if you would ask anyone in Europe in 18th century, do we have a black swan? They will have no. We've seen only the white one. So statistically, there is no other types of the swans. But then they were discovered in Australia, and that kind of comes with the logic with the building ML, building business processes, building understanding all of the things. When we're trying to make certain conclusion or understanding, are we making it on this data that we have? And are we considering that our decision and our conclusions will be affected by the data that we don't? So it's pretty powerful thought approach, and I really recommend this book. Really nice one for data analytics, for engineers, for any type of people who are working with the decisions making, with the data and making decisions. So my high recommendations for this.
Good. Thank you very much to all of you who watched and listened us. As usually, subscribe, share. We are all the time happy about the private messages we receive from you and private comments. Write your thoughts in comments. We will, by sure, we will take it in consideration and try to make our podcast better. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for listening our today's episode, and it was a pleasure to discuss all the matters. And we're looking forward to have subscription for use, comments, and see you on the next episode.
Bye bye.
Bye.